Hello, everyone. Before we begin, I want to say thank you to everyone who's left a comment, written a review, supported the show on Patreon, clicked the YouTube super thanks button, bought a copy of my book, or even just chose not to skip the ads. You're helping more than you know. You're helping this podcast reach someone who, like Joel, once did feel overwhelmed, facing the challenges they never saw coming. You're helping them feel seen and you're keeping this work going. Today's conversation is one of those that stays with you. Joel Case was 65 when, out of nowhere, a vertebral artery occlusion caused a cerebellar stroke. A man who ran marathons and skied 50K races suddenly couldn't stand or walk. And if that wasn't enough, cancer, a moose attack, and the emotional toll of recovery followed. But Joel's story isn't about what happened to him, it's about what he chose to do next. If you've ever felt like recovery keeps throwing curveballs or wondered how to keep moving when it all feels like it's too much, this one is for you. Let's dive in. Joel Case, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome, Bill. Thank you for having me and tell my story, I guess, and listen to your podcasts. Not religiously, but once about a year and a half ago, I was looking at things on the internet for stroke recovery since I suffered my stroke back in January 2022. So, and it was quite a life-changing event. Give you some background. Again, name's Joel Case. 68 years old now. Live in Idaho Falls, Idaho, in the States. Always career in basically radioactive waste cleanup. I started out, went to the University of Florida. Met my wife in Gainesville, Florida, and we kind of came out here on a lark. Didn't know where Idaho was, but job interview, Westinghouse started with. And for came out, we thought we'd stay here in Idaho. It was quite a culture shock moving from Florida with winter and fairly conservative place of the world and Mormon country, as we call it. So very heavily north of Salt Lake, and neither good or bad. It was just an interesting shock, culture change from Gainesville. But we've lived in Idaho 44 years. I've worked both in the commercial sector for nuclear industry, and then I ended my career with the Department of Energy and nuclear weapons cleanup. A lot of people think Department of Energy deals with energy, and that can't be further from the truth. We manage the nuclear waste and nuclear weapons stockpile for the military. That's a major function. That's what people don't realize. So Idaho has a big Department of Energy site. So, but to start my journey, I've been fairly active. I used to travel a lot. I worked at International Atomic Energy Agency. Fairly active athletically, ran marathons, etc., bike racing, mountain biking, skiing. So,
Even up to the age of 65?
Yeah, I was doing not marathons anymore. I did ski marathons. I did 50K marathons, about 3 or 4 a year. I would go up to Anchorage, Alaska. They had a tour of Anchorage. So
Wow.
it wasn't fast, but it was,
How long?
really
How long
good
did it
on the
take?
body.
How long did it
Pardon?
take to complete 50
My
kilometers?
fastest time was about 2 hours and 55 minutes. So that's
Wow.
31 miles. Yeah. So like I said, it was fairly athletic, camped, skied, ran and biked, and fairly healthy. I never had surgery. My first only surgery was I had tonsillectomy when I was like 6 years old. So, I kind of did have cases of skin cancer. Now you're from Australia, so you guys are probably familiar with the sun.
Familiar.
I was raised in Florida, and years as a kid through, we'd go and get our first tan and burn. So I've had probably, that was the only really health condition was I get either squamous or basal cell. Did have a melanoma, but I was pretty religious going in. So up until the time of my stroke, I won't say life was good, but fairly. No concerns. Biggest health scare came in June of 2021 when I saw your podcast. You reached out if people had had cancer, such as stroke. Well, I had high PSA on my prostate. From my prostate. So as men get older, always have to check your PSA level in your blood, and that's that antigen for prostate cancer. So went through all the tests, and it was high PSA. Went and did a MRI, and it looked like there might be something down in my prostate. So one of the things to talk about is learning the medical journey and dealing with the medical community in a fairly count of 50,000. And yeah, I know you guys have more of a universal health care, but in the States, it's not quite that. So that was quite a lessons learned for me, all the events that happened to me, starting with the prostate cancer. So, I had the biopsy, and turned out it was prostate cancer, and gave me some options. And so this was in the middle of COVID too, so that was always a challenge. So got diagnosed prostate cancer, went down to the University of Utah, which is, they have a good cancer center there, and was scheduled to have surgery to remove my prostate. Let's just get rid of it. And then they called a week before my surgery was scheduled that basically said, well, it's COVID. This is considered non-essential surgery. So they said, we can't tell you when we can have it scheduled. So I was fortunate enough, I kind of was looking around. Well, talked to the University of Washington. They also have a good cancer, and that's in Seattle. So long story short, they could get me in within 2 weeks. Ended up having the surgery there. And during COVID, flew up from Idaho Falls. It's about 500 miles away. So had my prostate removed and got scared to death. Never had, I hadn't had surgery since I was 6 years, and it was robotic. Fascinating technology. I'm an engineer. So it's robotic, where they go through your front, pump you up, and then he's behind the console and using the robotic arms to basically remove your prostate. So I got through that.
Is he in the same? Is he in the same room, at least, the surgeon, or in a different location?
Yeah. It's funny because my wife couldn't come back with me because it's COVID. Everybody's masked up, so the anesthesiologist comes in and they pump you full of happy juice, to get you kind of relax. And she tells you, you could die. They always tell the anesthesiologist and all those wonderful things. Now, side effects, but so they wheel me in. It's like the Star Trek control room, because this is a teaching hospital, and the doctor, he'd done 5,000 or 6,000 of these. I mean, really good surgeon. But residents. So there's like 20 people in this room with all the equipment. Like I said, it looked like a Star Wars chamber. And he's behind a console next to you on the operating table. So he's looking at a console, and they got people around. And the interesting thing I had not known is, I asked, well, your prostate's back there and you go through the front. So how do you get through all that stuff down there? And they said, well, we put 6 holes there, pump you full of CO2, and then they tilt your down to 45 degrees to slide all that out. And it's kind of relevant because I had my stroke a month later, and I wondered if that caused that. We can talk about that. So long story short, woke up 4.5 hours later. I'm cancer-free. So I still get my blood work checked every 3 months. That's always kind of a scary time, is it coming back? But so far, it's been 3 years removed, 3.5. So that's good. But so we flew home after about a week. And so about a month later, I was supposed to have cataract surgery. Now it's hell to get old. I had to get cataract. I'm 65 when this all happened. So, I was scheduled to get cataract surgery. It was late January. So had couldn't drink anything. So I went to bed, woke up to go to the bathroom about 4 in the morning, felt fine, and then went back to sleep. And then I woke up, the room is spinning, I'm throwing up, etc. And so I didn't know what I had, thought I had COVID, but this went on all morning. The spinning stopped, but I couldn't walk. I was throwing up about every hour. And finally, I went in. My wife took me into, we have walk-in clinics here. I don't know if they have those in Australia, but, not the emergency room. So they have either what they call physician's assistants or doctors. So there they said, oh, you've got vertigo, inner ear infection. It's like, okay. So I went home, but, I couldn't get out of bed. Next morning, I wasn't vomiting, couldn't keep anything down. But next morning, I told my wife, I got a brain tumor or something. So she took me to the emergency room where, they did an MRI, etc. And doctor came in and said, "You had a stroke." It's like, oh, really? And so I had a cerebellum stroke on my left side. And so I was hospitalized, and that evening he came up, and I never had any problems with my heart or anything. So it's like kind of a shock for everybody because I'm 5'9", about 150 pounds, and like I said, I was active every day. I ran or biked, I'd run 6 miles, or so going to that where I couldn't walk. And so he came up that evening. He said, "Well, it looks like I know why you had a stroke. You had a left vertebral artery tear dissection."
Uh-huh.
No, but it just didn't make sense. So, okay. And he said, but the good news is, and through a clot, and damage, he said you lost about 25% of your cerebellum. So that was kind of shocking to me. But
Wow.
We're about 10 minutes in. By now, you've heard Joel share how life changed overnight. One day, skiing marathons, and the next, unable to walk. And how recovery, even when you're strong and fit, can knock the wind out of you. If his story reminds you of your own, please know you're not alone. The invisible struggles, the quiet fears at night, the exhaustion that no one else sees, they're real and they're hard. If this part of Joel's journey hits home, leave a comment on YouTube. What's been the hardest part of recovery for you that others don't understand? And a big thanks to everyone that keeps this work alive. Your super thanks on YouTube, your support of the book, and my amazing Patreon supporters. All right, let's get back to Joel as he opens up about what helped him push forward and the surprising moments of connection he found along the way.
yeah, and that the only effect is I had no balance, or I couldn't walk because now I don't know what you experienced with yours, but so this was a clot that went blocked up in my cerebellum. Uh, so he said, the good news is it's completely occluded. So I go, well, that sounds horrible. But he said, no, you keep throwing clots if you didn't. So
The blood vessel that had the dissection is occluded. It's blocked
yeah, it's
completely,
totally blocked.
which means that even though there's blood flow not going through there, it cannot throw more clots, which is
Right, correct.
the benefit of it being occluded. And you have another 2 vertebral arteries and another carotid artery, so there is plenty
Right,
of blood flow to the brain, and
right.
that's engineering
Oh,
for you.
it is. And I actually had, and we can talk because some of the lessons learned that pass on to folks is keep asking questions, keep moving. But because it turns out it wasn't a vertebral artery dissection, it was arteriosclerosis, but we didn't know that. But the results are the same thing. So I was there about 2 weeks. They put me on. I must have seen. I had to touch my nose a million times, and they had nutritionists come up and say, "Can you eat?" But fortunate for me, I had some distorted vision, but that's fine now. But luckily for me, I could eat, swallow, and so they got me into put me down and monitor me for over the weekend. This was a Friday, and I tell you, it's a lonely feeling being in the hospital, and as you probably know, and thinking, "Gosh, my life has ended. I couldn't walk. You had to ring to go to the bathroom. They'd had to help you." So, but long story short, so they started me after about stabilized 5 days into physical rehab at the hospital there for 2 weeks. So where I'd gradually do exercises twice a day, and then they sent me. I just wanted to go home. So that journey, there's the dog. Sorry.
That's okay.
So it was a very shock to me coming. It made me forget about my prostate cancer. So
Yeah. So
but
the occlusion wasn't, then it was discovered the occlusion wasn't part of the vertebral artery dissection. It was
it was occluded
atherosclerosis.
vertebral artery. It was due to stenosis from
Stenosis.
arteriosclerosis.
Okay.
And, and here's the thing, because Idaho Falls, very limited neurology. Luckily, the
Uh,
doctor at the hospital was a neurologist, but he didn't specialize in really heart issues. But long story short, so I'm an engineer and questioning. So immediately I was not happy. Was sent home. I did can't say enough about the physical therapist learning to walk again. I started out with with hiking poles, etc. Uh, and I can't say enough. The dogs and my wife and the kids, they were very supportive. But the two dogs I have, just walking them every day got me back to where I could start jogging after about. I look like Lurch now, but I am back being physically active. But that's one of the lessons learned. You got to keep moving, or else you'll just, I think that's the biggest thing, being fit to get me through all of this. Because
yeah.
at the same time, I didn't, there was a U.S. senator who had the same type of stroke I had, and while I was in the hospital, he was senator from New Mexico, same symptoms, etc. But they had to do a brain decompression. I asked the neurologist in the hospital, "What's that?" Well, that's when your brain swells from the stroke, and they decompress. They drill a hole to relieve the pressure. So luckily, I didn't have that. I did have terrible headaches, but so rehab went fine. But I asked because at the point in time, it's like, well, I had a dissection. We didn't know it was stenosis. I went and got a second opinion, and we'll get to that about 6 months later. But I asked the surgeon, I said, well, because they asked me in the hospital, do you go to a chiropractor? No. You'd go to a hairdresser, they do neck, move your neck, because I guess there's a high incidence of dissections with neck manipulation.
There certainly
But
is.
I wondered, because when I had my surgery for the cancer, they strap your head down and you're inverted and they have to keep you still during the surgery. And I wondered if that could cause something, but they said no. But, as a follow-up, I just wanted, I started to see a neurologist. I go down once a year. I went to see her and they did an MRI and they concluded between some of my cholesterol levels, etc., that it was due to stenosis and arteriosclerosis disease, which
So that is probably fair. Now, of course, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know any of this stuff, but I know that with stenosis and the thickening of the inside of the artery wall, that in itself can be enough to change the blood flow and
yes,
the highs and low pressures of that part of the blood of the vessel, and therefore create a clot and then throw a clot off. Yes, it can.
and that's kind of where we're at. So I go down and so I'm 3 years out. But that year was tough. I learned how to walk and run again, and then as I mentioned to you, and I sent the email about this, is that October. So I had my stroke in January. Recovery took about 5 to 6 months, and this time I was working full time too. And that's where you learn. I don't know what you did as for your career, but I worked for the Department of Energy, and again, it's more of an administrative job, field work. But I learned a lot about people that have strokes, especially if they don't see any outward signs when you go back to work. Because I had brain fatigue and needed rest, take a nap, and so it was interesting that in my career in dealing with people at work, they just didn't seem to understand the effects I was having, the brain fog, and things like that. And
Yeah.
that was kind of disappointing. You could just see, you learn who your friends are, I guess, in situations like that.
Interesting
So,
comment, that one. You learn who your friends are. I'm not sure what happens, but some freak out and some can not understand and then still be sympathetic or empathetic. And I suppose the ones that kind of disconnect are the ones that don't know how to be empathetic.
yeah. And again, I think you're right, because there were certain people at work that were just so kind and understood, but they had gone through things too, I think. And, but yeah, it was just, I just remember it just, especially people that always talked about caring and I guess, in the country here, DEI, being inclusive, all that stuff. But I'm telling you, people, I got treated like I was mentally disabled when, they didn't see the outward, how I was suffering inside and tired. And just because I came back to work after 6 weeks, and that probably was a big mistake. I
Uh-huh.
probably should have. And some of that was pride, and, because
Ah.
so, but, so,
So
we're going through.
let me ask you a question. So
Sure.
my dad is 82 years old.
Oh,
Right now, today, as we speak, he's waiting for surgery to have his gallbladder removed.
oh, okay.
And I'd like to say that in 82 years, he's had a dream run. I mean, he's had very minor incidents for his health, etc. And one of the things that he's had was knee surgery, which was just an arthritic knee that was injured when he was younger, that needed to have a knee replacement. And pretty much, I think when he was a child, when he was still living in Greece, he had he had his appendix removed. That's all.
That was,
That all the things that's gone wrong with him. So when he gets to 82 and he's realizing, his age, and he knows roughly the average age that people live at, he starts to get a little bit, what's the word? I don't know if it's concerned, depressed, or something, because now he's in hospital and he's been there for 7 days, and they won't let him go until his blood stabilizes and they remove his gallbladder, and he's no longer at risk of having all the complications that a gallbladder that's blocked with stones can cause. So um, he's really struggling with the idea that he's unwell. What about, like, which is kind of understandable, but also, like, you're 82 years old. How can you expect you're not going to be unwell at some point? So, like, how do you, did you find yourself in a similar situation? What was the
well,
challenging part?
yeah, because I just, it felt, I couldn't run, I couldn't walk. It's sort of like, and then getting up, you want to fall over, and am I gonna? And then reading about stroke victims, there's a high incident of another stroke within 3 months, and I'm sitting there going, counting the days, get past that 90-day window.
Mm.
But yeah, it was, and this is kind of silly, but having good had good job, even though they were interesting how non-empathetic some people were. But I was raised, I'm not very religious now, but I was raised Catholic, and sort of like going to a Catholic school for 8 years, and nuns beating the heck out of you and all that stuff. It's sort of like the glass is always half full. So, I've had a great life, but, shit happens. And so
Hmm.
that part, but so I was just focused to get back and do what I could try to do, and I felt lucky that I could talk. I didn't have the weaknesses, the droopy legs, things like that when you read about. But yeah, it has been. Well, here's where it gets to, in October of that year. So we have a cabin over in the Tetons, it's about 60 miles from our house. And we get the glorious fall day. So my wife and we said, let's go up one last time. Harvest moon coming up. So it's right on the National Forest boundary over in Idaho side of the Tetons. So, and I have a route I run up on the forest. So we went back, and I go, well, let's see if I can, kind of test myself and see balance wise, go up with the dog. So I'm up there about 3 miles in on the forest boundary, high up, and the dogs are barking. I thought there's cows grazing up there, and I thought they were chasing cows. And I look up, and it's like, oh, biggest bull moose I've seen in my life. Now,
Hmm.
we have grizzly bear, we have bear, mountain lion, but moose, they're nuts. So I'm about 10 feet away from this damn thing, and because he was under a tree, didn't notice it. And so, long story, I'm going, oh God, this isn't good. It's rutting season. So I try and back off, and he charges, and boom, he gets me. And so I'm on the ground, blood dripping down my face because I guess my head went back and cut under my eye. And I'm thinking, first thing I'm thinking, well, God, did I get another artery tear or something?
Wow.
But so I got attacked by a moose, and why he didn't stay? They usually stay and stomp the heck out of you. But
Uh-huh.
I got up, and I'm sitting there going, I got to get to the hospital. So, long story short, called my wife. I stumbled down, broken ribs and collapsed lung, and that's when I said, God's telling me something. I've had it. I can't take this anymore.
The
Between the
religion
prostate
came
cancer, the
back.
stroke, and now a damn moose attack. But in the hospital, their little hospital in Driggs, they did full body scan. The doctor came in, the nurse, they're all excited. Oh, we haven't had a moose attack in a long time.
Wow.
But I said, because we're near Yellowstone National Park, and I don't know if you get the same thing with some of your tourists, but we call them Taurons. People, they think it's Disney World or Disneyland, where they go up and pet the bison. You always have stories about tourists getting attacked. So that's what I told the doctor. I says, I feel so stupid. This, because we always make fun of tourists, and here I go get attacked by a moose.
Wow.
But that kind of was luckily recovered fine from that.
So what period of time was all this? So from the prostate cancer to the moose attack, what period of time?
Okay, 9 months. It all happened within 9 months.
Wow.
So I had
That's too
prostate
much.
cancer December of 2021. Then I had my stroke in January, February of 2022, and then early October of 2022, the moose attack.
Wow.
So that was, but I said, well, things come in threes. So, I'll get on an airplane again now. So, but then that's when I decided, life is too short. I decided to retire between some of the pressures at work and things like that. I said, it's just, I'm 60. I was 65 then. I said, it's, still, quote, healthy, still can do things. So it's time to move on from this.
Were you going through all of these things on your own? Because it is genuinely a lot to deal with.
Oh my gosh.
Was there somebody that you were able to talk to, reach out to, get support from?
Well, my wife and I have been married for 44 years. And so she was kind of key. The dogs, again, I don't know if you're a dog person, animal person, but they kind of got me through and forced me to exercise and walk and run. And the moral support was my wife. We have 2 children. My son at home, he works, but he's still in the area. My daughter's in Boise. But a lot of it, people don't really understand what you're going through, though. They really don't, especially with the stroke, because outwardly you look at me, I don't seem, quote, disabled now, but I'm probably 90% of my balance. I'll have good days, bad days, but so, and kind of the brain, I won't say brain fog, but there is a little bit of what's interesting is like my spatial awareness on the side. I'm off about a half inch or so with that. But back to your question, is there anybody? My wife was probably the most, she's always there for me, and we've been married 44 years last month. So it's, but other than that, a couple close friends that we stay in. That's good over the last 3 years. But what really hit home with me, I didn't get one visit or card or call from when I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. That's where the work thing, that's what really, that one hurt. That was kind of one that was very, I don't understand, still don't understand.
People that you would have been colleagues with for many years.
Well, yeah, I mean, and so yeah, that part really hurt.
Do you think COVID might have had something to do with that? All of the trouble around access to hospitals?
Some of it, yeah, because that back then you had to have a mask to come in and things like that, and everybody was working remotely then. I mean, we were going in the office once or twice a week, but it was still in the pandemic area. But a phone call could have helped too, I guess. And maybe they didn't want it. deal with it. But that part, I think, was probably the thing that hurt the most during the whole period. But again, having somebody at home, because I tell you, for the first 6 to 9 months, I was afraid to go to sleep because this happened when I woke up, and am I going to have a stroke again? And the first 6 months after, sometimes I'd get a little bit of dizziness sometimes at night, just kind of after effects. And that was a little, I won't call it PTSD, but I told, the doctor I see, my neurologist, I said, it took a while to get through that.
A little bit
But
triggering and reminiscing
yeah,
of the time when it happened and wondering, am I having another stroke?
yeah. So that type of thing. So,
Yeah.
but I won't say I'm over it, but I don't like to travel by myself anymore. So, being in a hotel room, because I think that'd be awful to pass away in a hotel room.
I hear you.
But so my wife, my son, we ended up doing quite a few things together over the last 3 years. Has helped a lot too. We went to Scotland and I wanted to test myself 9 months after. We went and walked the West Highland Way. It's 100 miles in 5 days. We went from end to end up in the Scottish Highlands. And so we do a trip every year. We went to Amsterdam last year. I just wanted to, because I used to work in Vienna and always flew through Amsterdam. I always wanted to stay and see the city and go to the Anne Frank house. So things like that, taking joy and living for the moment. But so he's helped quite a bit by doing things, getting to know him a lot better too. So,
And you're testing yourself. How did you pass your test? Did you pass with flying colors? What was it like to do that 100-mile?
yeah. We did 5 days, so it was about 20 miles each day. Yeah, I was surprisingly, it was a pleasant surprise how well we did. I did during that. Now there were sections where where I could just hop up on things. I'm not going to be a mountain climber anymore, because it's my balance is not good. But it's so, but yeah, that was a great trip with him. And then we went to Amsterdam, was a good trip too, because like you living in Australia, when you come to the States, those are long journeys, on the
Yeah.
airplane.
Oh, yeah.
But so,
From Melbourne to LA, I think it's about, I feel like it's
15
about
hours.
14 hours or something.
14. Yeah, it's
15
11
hours.
hours to Amsterdam from Salt Lake, because we fly either there or Seattle, so about 11 hours. But I'm just happy. I want to do those things. I keep moving. Like some of the lessons learned is, I always inquisitive. So I interesting about since, because I go down every year now and get an MRI. And I meet with my neurologist. They want to make sure the stenosis, on my other arteries are okay, because
I was just
you know
wondering about that. I was just wondering about the incident with the moose.
oh yeah, go. Yeah.
Um, did that make it harder for you to kind of get through your stroke recovery? Because that was pretty early on in the
Yeah,
stroke
within
recovery
the first
journey.
9 months. Yeah.
Yeah, because you glossed over it just now like nothing. I had some broken ribs, I had this, I had that. But how long did it take to recover from a moose attack?
Well, fortunately, it, the first week was pretty painful because it was, but my lungs didn't fully collapse, which was lucky,
Uh-huh.
because at the hospital, I would say the ribs healing up took about 2 to 3 months, where I could feel like I was moving okay. It was funny because uh, the hospital in a little place called Driggs, probably 20 beds. So the doctor there, when they said, well, you got a collapsed lung, and they basically said, we could keep you here, but if that lung fully collapses, we can't handle it, because they have to intubate. You have to cut a hole, and pump up. So I got a really fun ride with an ambulance over to Idaho Falls, about a 2-hour drive with them and talking. But fentanyl is a wonderful thing. what they use in the hospital, because that's what they do to make you feel a little bit
Better.
but yeah, the moose attack, I mean, one of the things was recovering from the stroke, going back up to our cabin the summer after it, because, the winter up there, we don't go up. It's a lot of snow. But so the first time going back up to where I got attacked, because that's where I like to run and walk. And so that was a little bit like, I got to get back on the saddle. So I go back up again, but I'm a little more careful about looking my surroundings and all. But
And you've been
yeah,
going up
like
there
I
for
said,
years, and then you've never come across that type of a
yeah,
situation before.
we have, because that area, it's about 800 feet up on a ridge, and I can send you a picture of me. My wife I took a picture on the way to the hospital with my face. You can see it's kind of dramatic, but yeah, that's not where we've lived here 40 years. And we've been going up there for 30, and I've seen moose in the, long creeks, etc., but not up high like that. So it's funny. This last summer up there, I was riding my bike, and gosh darn, there's a moose 100 yards ahead of me.
So
But
something's
again,
changed in their habits, in their travel habits. Seems like
I don't know. It's I've seen a lot of moose in my life here, and you always give them fair, because they're nuts. And I always worried what I'd do if I see a grizzly bear, because this is grizzly bear country,
as well.
and it's always. And but it just kind of was the nail in the coffin for me to say, this is it. I'm retiring when I got through that. And,
was it a bit of a rock bottom moment? Was it a little bit
of that was I think that, because I said on the way to the hospital, I kind of broke down and told my wife, I just can't take this anymore. What else is going to happen? So that's when I decided I'm just going to retire and just move on. So, but these arteriosclerosis, I've got my, dealing with doctors is an interesting journey too, because a lot of doctors, where we live is kind of a rural area. It's a town of 60,000, but we are fortunate Salt Lake's about 3 hours away. And I'm fortunate enough where I have medical insurance. It basically lets me to go anywhere. So that's why I go anything serious. For the stroke, I see a neurologist there, and she's very good. I get an MRI every day to check on my neck. But an interesting thing is, I ask her about, well, what about heart disease? If I had arteriosclerosis and this caused that, what about my heart? Because again, being an engineer, thing will put two to two together is like, well, what about there? And she says, well, you're short of breath, you this, etc. I said, no chest pain. But so this last visit was last November, and she said she had been talking to a cardiologist, and she said, well, why you ever had a calcium test? I go, no, what is that? So long story short, they basically can measure plaque buildup in your arteries of your heart. So I did get one done when I had my MRI for my neck. They also did for my heart. So that actually came back, I've got plaque in my heart. So I don't know what that means. I did a stress test, passed that with flying colors. But see, I think what I found with doctors, I'm fairly fit. I was athletic, and so we're on the extreme. There's no there's the medium what they're used to deal with, and so we're kind of on this other end. So I always kind of want to push to make sure everything's good, because who would have thought I'd have a stroke?
Yeah.
Prostate cancer, everybody gets that eventually. You live old enough, supposedly.
Yeah.
Moose attack, well, that's out of left field.
That's a bit out of nowhere for sure. Like, so what are they doing now to help you with the perhaps the stenosis in the heart? Are you on blood thinners? Are you on medications?
Well, luckily, so with the stroke, after my stroke, they put me on statins. So I'm on very high. It was a high dose of statins, and also luckily I didn't have to go on the blood thinner except for baby aspirin. So I'm on 81 milligrams of baby aspirin, and then I'm on the statin. But they wanted to get my cholesterol down, and especially my LDL. So those are the bad cholesterol, because it was so they've been working hard to get it below 70, and we finally did achieve that. I had to get another medication. I forget what it's called. It's so, the statins work different. This is a medicine they added that takes, it goes to your gut where it basically takes it out of your gut, the
Uh-huh.
cholesterol. So between the statin keeping that LDL level low and then having it absorb more in the gut, we finally got this last blood test I had. We're below 70. So my cholesterol looks good. Everything so far looks good, but I'm a little, I guess the statins, what they do to plaque on your arteries, they put fibers around it so it stabilizes those. If you have plaque buildup, it helps
Uh-huh.
stabilize that, so it helps prevent clots.
Uh-huh.
So I'm on a journey and just keep been blessed. I don't know. I know you had a stroke, and I don't know how you dealt with the medical profession. It's because it can be frustrating.
That can
Can
be.
be
I
frustrating.
sacked my first medical team. I was in hospital for the first two bleeds. I wasn't happy with their approach, so I left and went to another hospital and went through that. So that was okay. Found the right people later, and they were the ones that supported me from the second bleed through to the third bleed, and then brain surgery. Uh, so, and then I had, like you, in a short period of time, I had a couple of things that came up. So the brain bleed um, was at the age of 37. So was
Oh
this.
wow.
So was the second one. By the age of 40, I needed cataract surgery. So I had that done at 40. At about uh, at about yeah, that was just in my early 40s, and then at around my late 40s, somewhere there, somewhere in the short amount of time between the cataract. Sorry, mid 40s. Yeah. So within a few months after my 40th birthday, I had my eye surgery, then I had brain surgery, then I recovered from that, and then by 2016, my 42nd birthday, I had to have thyroid surgery and had to have part of my thyroid removed.
Taking it. Oh, wow.
So I went
So
through
you're on a journey too.
exactly the same kind of ups and downs, and it was like, okay, well, this is a lot to deal with. The cataract surgery was the most mild and simple version of it all, but the yeah, the other stuff was quite dramatic. And the thyroid
Right.
surgery created the same type of fatigue that neurological fatigue creates.
Okay.
And then trying to work out which one I was going through and what was happening was really difficult. And getting all the specialists and the neurologist and the endocrinologist all speaking the same
Working
language
together. Yeah.
was really impossible. So it does take it out of me at that time. You know, you're dealing with a lot. So I experienced, some emotional issues, some mental health issues, but I was seeing a counselor the whole time. How, how did you go emotionally and mentally? Did that impact your mental health and your
Yeah, it
emotional health?
did. It did. And I did see a counselor for a while because, like I mentioned, I mentioned my neurologist says, I kind of I don't like going to sleep at night because my brain, I have to sleep with uh, listening to some, not music. I listen to podcasts at night now. It just helps me because my brain is always in chaos, I guess, overthinking. So this
Uh-huh.
quiets the brain. And I did talk to a counselor for a while, and that helped a lot in the sense that I don't know if it was called depression, but I guess it is, because, but just getting through the grief, grieving for the Joel that used to be in some sense, but now trying to celebrate the Joel that is now. Because I found my wife and I are emotionally closer in a lot of ways because we went through a lot. Uh, with our daughter, she had anorexia for like from age 12 through 18. It was a long journey. And then trying to reconnect with our son. Now, so I wouldn't wish mental illness on anyone dealing with that. But so again, and since something like the paraphrase your book is, I look back, I tell my family, I said, well, uh, this is the best thing that ever happened to me in a lot of ways. It's because I have a lot more empathy. I won't say I'm not depressed. Good run, good walk with the dogs. Being retired sure helps a lot. But you think about your mortality too, and what have I done? What have I done? And try so that part. But it's like try and live each day. But there was some depression there, especially after the low point with the moose attack, and that's why I made a decision to retire to help talk with somebody about things that happened at work, things like that. But another thing that it's kind of funny when I was in rehab. One of the things they did to help you on rehabilitation and get the brain working again, they use a Wii council to play tennis and golf like that. Because I took up golf again after my kids went away, my wife and I. She said, let's start golf again. And so one of the things I was thinking up there in the hospital, I was looking out the window, I was like, gosh, I can't die yet because what are the dogs going to do? What am my wife going to do? And then I'm thinking, am I ever going to play golf again? So isn't that awful? But I have. It helps.
Yeah, it seems bizarre, but it's not. I mean, it's just the brain trying to work things out, just trying to navigate it and go, like, what do I do? Your overthinking brain, was that something that you always were that made you ideal for engineering, or did the engineering create the overthinking brain?
I think it was more, gosh, that's a good question. I've always been a little anxious, and maybe because being raised, I won't say a dysfunctional family, but probably a lot of that was being the youngest. I have two older sisters. Now they're both in Florida still, but I think part of the brain, and then my childhood, my dad was an alcoholic, and so some of the dysfunction with the family and just led to anxiety and then overthinking. So that probably contributed to it. And I mentioned I did travel a lot in my job, mostly in the States, but so I wasn't there. And being half Irish, before the stroke and traveling like I did, I think Delta Airlines turned me into an alcoholic with all the upgrades and all. So that's one thing that was lessons learned. The good thing benefit of the stroke. I learned I wasn't an alcoholic because after the stroke, I like beer. I like a good beer and some wine too. But after the stroke, I'm a lightweight now. I just can't handle more than one or two beers, and I asked so.
I would say I would encourage you not to drink at all.
Oh well, I basically don't now
Yeah.
because because I talked to my neurologist because I had this almost embarrassed to talk about it, but so about 9 months after my wife's roommate from college, we used to go back. They live outside New York City. We'd go back and visit. We hadn't seen them since COVID, so we dropped the dogs off here in Boise and daughter, and we flew back to see them and flew through New York City. But I got upgraded, so I had a couple glasses of wine on the plane and hadn't eaten. Long day flight. I blacked out, total blacked out. And it's like my wife thought I was having another stroke. So that's when I basically cut off. I talked to neurology. He says, well, cerebellum, that's where alcohol goes. So another good thing, that basically, cut out drinking. So,
Yeah.
but it was interesting. So
I'm curious about the drinking. Was it at the level where an Irish person might say, yeah, I've just had a couple, which is a lot for every other normal person. And therefore, what I'm trying to say is like, would that be potentially part of the cause of the atherosclerosis? Because that's what a lot of alcohol can do.
yeah, I asked the doctor about that, and she says, well, you don't seem to have your liver function. Everything looks
Ah,
good. You should have liver disease. And again, I didn't drink, like some people I knew in college could
yeah,
drink a case of beer, things like that. It was
yeah.
just so maybe episodical drink, maybe binge drinking when I was on traveling.
Binge drinking, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that type of thing. So, but again, what came out of this was I can't do that anymore, which is a good thing. So,
Mm.
but I'm on gotten through a lot. 3 years out. So still, a little anxiety, but I live each day as a time. And I think some of the biggest lessons learned is from all of this is you got to keep moving, because all the doctors I've seen, and if I wasn't fit, because, when I go to my doctor appointments, urologist I still get my blood checked, and for my neurologist, and then you go in, the cardiologist, you look in the waiting room, and it's you look around, and my gosh, we're a pretty obese nation in this country. I don't know what it is in Australia, but I look around and people in wheelchairs on oxygen, and it's like, gosh. So I just feel blessed and fortunate that I was able to get through this. And who knows where we'll end up, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in a good place. I'm 68. I don't know how much longer I have in this world. And again, I think, the stroke with the medicine, everything, I feel pretty good. There's no guarantees with the cancer, but I have done some volunteer work. I think that's been very fortunate.
What kind? Tell me about that.
Yeah, my wife always wanted to learn how to fly fish. So after I got out of the hospital, Idaho Falls, fly fishing is big out here. And so the volunteer work is with a group that cancer survivors, men with cancer. It's they basically through fly fishing, they take them out on retreats, but it's more. I mean, the fly fishing is incidental. It's basically get men talk about their cancer, because men don't like to talk about things.
It's a scam. The fly fishing is the scam.
Oh yeah, that's basically it. It's just to get, and so I help volunteer and again, I went as a guest, being a cancer survivor, because a friend of mine with this organization. After the weekend, it's very emotional because you learn about, because this volunteer work is you sit with a group of men cancers and you help facilitate them to talk about. You don't have them focus, but just tell them about themselves, get their mind off of it, but also that you're not alone, because men are not, I won't say not like women, but it's trying to get people talking, and that you're not on this journey by yourself. And so it was very emotional when I went through it, just to hear a talk with other men about it. And now my story was kind of interesting because prostate cancer, stroke, and then the moose attack when I first went to this thing. So they wanted to bring me back as help be a facilitator. So I do that about 3 times in the summer with they go out to a lodge up in the mountains, and we basically a 3-day weekend where we teach them how to fly fish, but it's mainly about the group chat and just talking about things. So as you say, the fly fishing is just a scam, as you say.
It's the lure. The fly fishing is the lure. And then these guys come in and they take the bait, and then, okay, now let's talk. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's very, very powerful, actually. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like it's been part of what's shaped your life in a meaningful way after all of these incidents. Was your life lacking that type of meaning, or that type of that part of it before stroke? Was it just business all the time? Like, what was it like?
Yeah, it was. I look back on my career, and I focused. I had a lot of self-centeredness, I guess, and hubris and self-importance, and so didn't have much empathy, probably. Raised as I was, just do your job, stupid type of attitude. Isn't that terrible to say? But I don't want to hear about your problems. So, and an interesting thing too is there is karma in the world, because my wife has had MS, multiple sclerosis, for about 35 years. Now, you never know. It's very, very mild case, but she has balance problems, but I never understood. And so I didn't have the empathy probably with her. So that's where before the stroke, it just, because, it's very, you have to ring somebody to get you out of bed, go to the bathroom, take a shower and all that kind of stuff because I could not walk. I couldn't do anything. So that part just made me introspective also. But looking back on things, and it's like, gee, not that I have regrets, but yeah, I could have done things different. But
Hmm.
it is what it is. And you just
Mm.
try and build upon lessons learned on that. So again, as you said, a stroke was probably the best thing that happened to me.
Seems like it's been a line in the sand moment for you where it's enabled you to reevaluate things, look at things differently. The new experiences have made you see other people's lives differently. Um, the
Because I
whole,
was very judgmental before the
yeah,
stroke in a way, and
yeah,
in my mind, and so that's probably not a good thing. So
yeah,
no,
kind
it
of.
is not a good thing.
It's definitely not. So you were kind of like I was, ignorant, and as a result, I say it often in the podcast episodes. You may have missed it but I say when used to see people sitting in a wheelchair, I used to think they were just sitting down. Now I knew that deeper down, their leg didn't work or their spine was injured or something. I knew that logically, but I just thought that it was not that much of a big deal that somebody's in a wheelchair. And I didn't actually ever have a proper moment where I contemplated somebody's life or situation. But then after my episodes, I realized, well, then there's emotional challenges, there's physical challenges, there's probably financial challenges, there's probably, like, I mean, how could you be so naive and
Right,
so ignorant? But when your life hasn't had that level of, um, when you haven't had that kind of experience in your life, well, it's not, it's not that bad that you are that ignorant. It's just you cannot sometimes appreciate something unless you actually know somebody who went through it or has been through it, and you're able to have the deep and meaningful conversations,
right,
and you're able to see more of the struggle. Because, of course, if I don't know that person in a wheelchair, I don't see the struggle. I just see somebody sitting in a wheelchair getting pushed around, and I'm thinking, well, at least he's got a wheelchair and he can push himself around and he can get from A to B. But gosh, man, like it is just, and it's not something to really feel bad about, I don't think. If you stay that ignorant after you've been through something like that and you're still terrible to people who
yeah,
are struggling and you're still not empathetic, well, then, yeah, then you're a bit of a thickhead and, you know, you don't deserve empathy either. But this is what I think one of the reasons why we go through difficult things is I think it's so that we can become more more aware, more educated, more understanding, and we can gain wisdom, and then we could hopefully put that into practice and make a difference to people, not just go to work
yeah,
and put money in your bank account, but also volunteer,
yeah,
connect with people in a different way, which helps to heal them, but it also helps to heal us because we're all traumatized. Everyone's living with some kind of a trauma. And we we're not, we don't have the gift of being full-time philosophers who can just gather somewhere and just talk everything through and work it out and get to the bottom of it and then, and then move on from it. We're not, we're not being trained that way. We live in a industrial type of society. Schooling has been, let's prepare these people for working in a factory or a line
yeah.
or somewhere. So we are still doing what we've been trained to do, and we need to give ourselves a little bit of, leeway, a little bit of grace as well.
Yeah, compassion and
Yeah,
well, it's
self-compassion.
it's interesting because since my stroke, people I worked with know over the years here in Idaho, a couple people have actually had strokes, heart attack or blood clots, and they actually reached out to me, which has been very well. I share with them, and which has been very gosh, what's the word? I won't say self-satisfaction, but it's just been, okay, this is anything I can impart to help them has been very, very helpful to me and hopefully to them.
Full
Because,
circle. Sounds like it's come full
yeah,
circle.
yeah. Because one was when I was at the cardiologist, the guy I worked with, he's there, and he just had the stroke. And he looked pretty bad shape. So he followed up with me, and he's doing really, really well. So that's so there's no coincidence in the world, I guess, in some sense. But
Yeah.
that's been also, like I said, it's been a interesting 3 years for me, an interesting journey. You mentioned financial. I mean, I don't know what you have with healthcare, but what I learned about the hospital systems here is what a mess. Because my 2 week stay, I had to deal with like 5 different companies that, because hospitals here are contracting out, they're being bought by hedge funds, and the emergency room was based out of St. Louis. I got a separate bill. The physical therapy was based out of Salt Lake, and this is one hospital. So I mean, that I won't say it adds stress, but then you're they're calling you up. We're going to send you the collections. Well, wait a second. What are you talking about? This is a hospital on my insurance provider. But long story short, that's just another stress factor that I don't know if you guys have to deal with that over there.
Not yet, not yet, thankfully. So we have some private hospitals, but most of the hospitals are public. And that's what you just said is more scary, the scariest thing I've ever heard. Hospitals are owned by hedge funds. Oh my gosh,
A lot of them are.
Those two things should never come together.
Well, because what happens is it's all about profit and in and out, in and out. So
I mean, it's similar with us. There's never enough beds for everybody to be in there at the same amount of time, which is cool, right? I get that. Get people healthy, well enough to go home and deal with it themselves. I kind of like that. That's perfectly fine. But owned by a hedge fund, which is relying on profit, my gosh, a hospital should not be a for-profit organization. It shouldn't make a loss, but it should not be a for-profit organization. I don't know if that's
interesting comparing the hospital. Go ahead. Comparing the hospital here, because I was hospitalized here with my stroke, but the surgery was at a university hospital. I see my doctors down for my follow-ups at University of Utah. Just totally night and day in the difference in how they bill and the service you get, because they're not for profit. They're a university teaching hospital. Here, like I said, we have one major hospital, and it's owned through a hedge fund investor out of Nashville, Tennessee. But like I said, it took me 3 months to get through all of the stuff on dealing with getting and I have good insurance.
Yeah.
So that stress factor, which you guys don't have to deal with. I hope you never have to, because in my mind, it's a shame. The richest country in the world, we have people that don't have insurance.
Yeah, so, it's crazy. Doesn't matter which side of politics you're on. That is something that both sides of politics have let the public down with. Like that, they've definitely dropped the ball with that one. And I don't like the fact that you hear that a stroke survivor's just got $150,000 bill, and they're not working, and they're going to be sent to collections. I mean, there can't be anything more ridiculous than that.
So,
but I understand.
We got through it. Like I said, low band with. Can you hear?
Our connection is struggling right now for some reason. Our connection is really struggling.
Can you hear me, Bill?
I can barely hear you, but let's see if it settles down.
Oh gosh, we're gonna lose. Hope we don't lose.
I think that might be our sign to wrap it up. But let me just ask you one last question. So if you could share one lesson from your journey with somebody newly diagnosed, what would it be?
Keep moving. Don't give up. reach out to people. That's three things, isn't it?
Oh, that's plenty. You can keep going.
Keep
Yeah, I don't
moving, I think,
mind.
is the most popular. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but those three things, keep moving, never give up, and reach out to people, because deep down, most people are sympathetic once they know your story. But yeah, if you go through life with one good friend, that's all you need in life.
Joel's journey isn't a tidy story of recovery, it's a story of endurance, to finding strength in small steps, of learning to see with new eyes. I'd love to hear what stayed with you from today's episode. What part of Joel's story spoke to you and your experience? Let's keep this space one where stroke survivors feel seen, heard, and supported. If you're ready to go deeper, the unexpected way that a stroke became the best thing that happened, my book shares stories, tools, and circuit breakers to help you shift toward growth. Check it out at recoveryafterstroke.com/book. And if you'd like to keep this work going, hit the super thanks on YouTube. Join us on Patreon. And if Joel's story moved you, please share this episode. Someone else might need it today. And remember, one small win at a time. That's how recovery happens. See you next time.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.